Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. How are we all? I hope you're all good. I hope you have all had a fantastic week. Well, fantastic 2 weeks because there wasn't an episode last week, was there? Again, apologies for that, but just a lot going on at the moment. And as I've said, it's not going to be, the new norm, but there are going to be times when that happens. So yeah, keeping you on your toes, guys. But I hope you're all good. I hope you've all had a fab week. I hope you are enjoying the slightly better weather that we're getting in the UK at the moment, which, going into spring, oh my gosh, it just feels so revitalising, doesn't it? I feel like this year especially, it's just been a long winter. My husband and I normally have some sort of winter sun, whether that is kind of the end of the year, so like the year that we got married, we went to the Maldives in November. Last year we were in Thailand at the start of the year, and this year we haven't had anything, so we haven't been away. We've obviously got the dog, saving for a house, so there hasn't really been the space, time and financial resources to do everything, and we've really felt it. So I'm just so happy, and I'm really, really, really hoping that we get a gorgeous summer that really breaks up that awful weather. I mean, I'm saying all this, you might not be in the UK listening. I know I've got listeners in lots of different lovely, sunny, warm climates. So enjoy the sunshine, especially if you've been in Australia in the last few months, because I've been watching some of my friends' stories and the weather just looks beautiful. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope if you are in the UK that you are feeling revitalised and just, getting that kind of, I guess, that spring in your step back, no pun intended. I did an episode, I think it was last year, it might have been the year before actually, it must have been last year because the year before I didn't start the pod until July, but it was all about how actually in nature so nature doesn't actually start waking up until the spring, does it? You don't see daffodils coming through in the snow, you don't see flowers blooming, there's animals that hibernate for the whole of the winter period, and actually it makes sense that humans don't need to be and shouldn't be firing on all cylinders 100% all of the time. So it's quite normal to feel a little bit more sluggish and I guess just a bit kind of lacking in energy and momentum and motivation in the winter months. And I definitely find that happens. Not fully, but I find myself feeling a lot more proactive and just, revitalised and kind of raring to go in the spring and summer. So I'm kind of coming out of my little hibernation and starting to feel a little bit more me. Also, there's some, stuff going on personally, which is a little bit better than it was. So things with my nan are improving. There is, some exciting stuff going on work-wise. So things are looking up, but this isn't an update about me this week. I know you all love my 10-minute introductions talking about my life. I'm pretty sure some of you skip past that. But this week, I wanted to chat about something which sounds like, how do I put this? It sounds really basic and it sounds really like, of course. But actually, it's something that we're all really, not great at, I tend to find, and that is asking for help. Now, I've always thought of myself as somebody who is good at asking for help, I don't know, I've never I've never really had it reflected or had a mirror held up to me to say that I'm not. But yeah, the last few months, I think that is definitely something that I have come to realise, not just on my own, but from those around me as well. And I guess I'm picking kind of like where that comes from and the kind of the passed down the generations, what would I say? Passed down the generations, thought processes, judgments, biases that we all get unraveled in. Like, we all have things that come from our like direct parents or down the family line, and it just is. Like, if you're born into a certain religion, you'll have certain beliefs. If you are born into a certain class or cultural background, you will have held certain beliefs, and it's only as you get older that you kind of unpick those a little bit. And I've never thought that asking for help or anybody asking for help was something that I had a problem with, but apparently I did. So it's just really interesting that, as I've said time and time again, when something comes up in one area of my life, and I don't know whether this is your reticular activating system, so your RAS, so your like life filter, that basically then picks up on it a lot more in other areas, or whether it does just start to come to the surface more. I don't really know why, but when something comes up in one area, it tends to come up in a lot of areas for me, and that's when it becomes something that I think might make some good content, might make sense to talk about. So, as you all know, if this isn't your first time listening, and if it is, then please go back and listen to the back catalogue. There's some great episodes in there. But if you've been around here for a while, you'll know that things in my life have been a little bit, up and down, a bit chaotic. We've been dealing with some family health issues. My aging nan, the dog has been a lot in terms of challenge. And actually, I didn't really realise until I spoke to my coach about this a couple of weeks ago that I am not the best at asking for help, that I will maybe ask for help in one area that I kind of feel is acceptable or okay. So, work, for instance, I don't have a problem in hiring somebody. I've got a team of people that I can dip in and out of, that are freelance support, that will help me with things like research, data and insights, graphic design, all of these sorts of different things, my web development. And it's all stuff that I am not like in my zone of genius. It's not something that I am, is a strength of mine. Am I good with data? I'm okay with data, but do I want to sit and look at a spreadsheet every day? Absolutely not. People is my thing, conversations, uncovering passion points. Again, graphic design. Am I creative? Reasonably, but have I got the patience to sit and teach myself a new design tool? Or is it a good use of my time? No. So I'll absolutely go out to people for that stuff. Never had an issue with it. But then my coach pointed out to me that in other areas of my life, that isn't always the case. And actually, I think the the dog being one area, like, I feel like that is a responsibility that we have taken on, that, there have been challenges. And have we hired a trainer? Yes, because I don't know what I'm doing, with a lot of the training and a lot of the backing. But when it comes to things like support for walking him, support for looking after him, daytime support, maybe when I'm working, I just haven't been like researching or trying to find anything to support me in that sense, because I feel like it's my responsibility. I feel like it's like, we took this on, we need to deal with it. And he is getting like absolutely loads better, but we still can't leave him. So, it's a lot. And then other areas of my life. So, emotional support when it's come to dealing with things with my family. Like, yes, of course I've got friends, but I haven't really spoken to a lot of them about, the depths of it. I feel like it's a bit of a burden, and it's almost been a bit of a Debbie Downer talking about some of this stuff. So it's an area where I haven't really kind of reached out for support. And she just basically reflected back to me that it was really interesting that there were certain areas where I felt like it was okay to ask for help, and certain areas where I felt like it was on me to deal with it and that I should kind of internalize it all. And actually what that was doing was just making those areas of my life a lot heavier, a lot more difficult to deal with. They were becoming, a lot more burdensome. That's not a word, is it? A lot more of a burden, because I was carrying it all myself, and obviously with the support of my husband, who's incredible. But, in terms of kind of professional support, or support that we pay for, or support that is, more consistent, it wasn't there because I wasn't asking for the help. And then something came up the other day, which I found really interesting. And this was kind of what I was alluding to at the start around generational kind of judgment and bias. Is one of my sister-in-law's friends, well, two of them, I think, set up a GoFundMe page. So my sister-in-law has got cancer at the moment. She's very poorly. She's set up her own business last year, doesn't obviously get sick pay. They have life insurance, but they don't have any sort of critical illness cover on their mortgage or finances. So basically she can't work, and it's obviously going to be for quite a long period of time. So two of her friends set up a GoFundMe page. And when I was talking to some of my family members about this, there was comments made like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. That sounds like begging to me. And that sounds like, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right, doesn't feel right. And actually at first, it's kind of how I felt. I kind of felt a little bit, not triggered. I, was certainly happy to pitch in and support, but I almost felt like, oh, that's a bit, I don't know how to put it really, but a little bit kind of, should you really be asking for that? And it made me smile, because I realised that I have put towards GoFundMe's and pitched in for, charity donations and donations to things that were so much less severe and serious than what they are going through at the moment, and so much less worthy, and didn't think twice about it. And it's just crazy, isn't it? Because actually, there's a few reasons why the GoFundMe is a great idea. A, because they do need the financial support. They do need the help. And whilst there are certain grants and things that they can apply for, there's no guarantee that they'll get them. And also they, might not be very much money. It might take a while to come through. So first of all, it's very, very much needed. And second of all, people are constantly saying to me, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And 9 times out of 10, the stuff that you need help with is not stuff that you're going to reach out to those people for. The emotional support, the talking things through. If it's somebody that you're not really close with, it's not my stuff to share. So I don't feel comfortable doing that. But they do still want to feel like they're helping. And so actually sharing the link to the GoFundMe is a way that people feel like they are doing something when, there's probably not a huge amount more that they can do in this situation, because a lot of it is out of our control. So just donating, a tenner or something is so, so helpful. And it really makes people feel like they've contributed. So when I thought about it and I put it like that, I was like, it's a great idea. And actually, having spoken with my brother, he has seen it in such an amazing way, in that he said it's really opened his eyes to the fact that, this should be something that we've always got open, everybody, and that we can just reach out to our network and say, right, we're going through this. We've opened our donations page if anybody wants to help. And it could be for something like your car breaks down, or it could be, medical treatment, or it could be if you've been made redundant. There could be many reasons, but that people want to help each other. And it's like that community feel and that village feel that we had years ago that we've kind of lost now, especially with social media and the digital age. Like, I don't know some of our neighbours around here. In fact, I don't know most of them. So that sense of community, that sense of helping each other, it's something that everybody wants to feel in some sense, and we're losing it. And so it was really interesting, because I thought, why did I have that natural response? But actually, when I think about it, asking for help in that sense is not only a real positive for the person that's asking, but also a real positive for the person that is is giving the support, is contributing. And so that was one of the things that had come up in terms of asking for help and feeling like, why did it feel so difficult to do? And also they didn't set it up themselves. Like my brother and sister-in-law didn't set it up themselves. It took another person to do it for them because they felt that way. They felt like they couldn't possibly ask. And actually, this is probably one of the most severe situations that you'll ever face. And nobody has said, oh my God, that's so cheeky or rude. Like absolutely no one. And then for those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. There was a period that I went through probably just after Christmas, I guess, when all this was sort of kicking off with my sister-in-law, but also work was really busy, but also really tough. I had some, difficult clients and some just really difficult searches and things that were taking a lot of time and energy. The dog was probably at the absolute kind of, top of the scale in terms of how challenging he was going to be. And also we're still settling in. My nan was really ill. She'd gone into the care home and she was getting infection after infection. And it was just a lot, there was a lot on my plate. But actually, I wasn't reaching out to people. I wasn't asking for support. I wasn't doing the things for myself that I knew that I needed to. And the reason for that, I think, was because I felt like I needed to prioritise everybody else and everything else. And in doing that, I got towards, I think, probably the closest point to burnout that I've ever got to. I was really teary. I was not nice to be around. I was snappy. I was just internalising so much. God, it actually makes me feel quite emotional thinking about like how hard that period felt. Because it just felt like there was so much in my life that was happening that was out of my control. And that would have been the absolute perfect point to reach out to my network of incredible people who I know specialise in, these amazing therapies and self-care tools and or coaches. And I've got so many people around me that do this. And yet I didn't do it. I didn't reach out because I felt like the limited time that I had in my day needed to be spent on grinding and doing all the things. And actually that was completely the wrong approach to take. So I came out of that really, really, really tough kind of struggle period probably around maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And I reached out to a friend of mine who was a coach of mine a while ago. A few years ago, she's run retreats that I've been on. And she was doing these, well, I originally reached out to her and said, look, I'm at what I think is like burnout. I've got an evening to myself tonight. What would you be doing to kind of reset your mind? And, I told her some of the stuff that was going on, and she voice noted back and was like, wow, that's a lot. And I knew she was doing these, like what she was calling magic calls, which is basically, it's you come to the call with a problem or something that you're trying to work through that you're really struggling with, and she will help you come up with solutions. It could be anything. It could be business that you're trying to set up, or trying to win more clients in your current business. It could be that you are going through something personally, like a relationship struggle. It could be fitness and health. It could be anything. she's not kind of professing to be an expert in those areas, but it's more about guiding you to the answers and guiding you to the solutions. So I spoke to her about all this stuff, and she was like, why don't we jump on a magic call, because this seems like something that you need help with. And I was like, but I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what, the thing is I'm trying to solve. I just feel like I'm drowning. And she was like, that's what you need to solve. You need to solve the feeling that you're drowning. You need to get some perspective and put some steps in place, and you need to basically work through systematically all the stuff that you're going through and what you can and can't do. And just having that call put in place before I'd even gone on it made me feel so supported and so held and so, just supported. It made me feel like I'd got somebody in my corner that was going to help me. And so we jumped on the call and I told her everything, and we went through things in a kind of, a systematic order. So we spoke about the dog. We put in place some things that I was going to do. So meet up with a couple of people in my local area that do like dog walking, dog sitting. Doesn't even have to be paid for services. There's an app called Borrow My Doggy, where people who can't have dogs due to maybe like shift work or living in apartments or whatever the situation might be, want to spend time with people's dogs. So actually on the day that I'm recording this, I'm going to meet with a girl who just lives down the road actually. So I'll let you know how that goes next time. So we put that in place. Also to work through the separation anxiety and some of the things that he was going through, I actually booked a session with an animal healer. So somebody who is spiritually in tune with the energy of animals. Far, far, far too much to go into today. But oh my gosh, that was, literally a 10 out of 10. And it just helped me to kind of understand some of the stuff that was going on with him, which was just great. I also utilised ChatGPT as my new best friend for all, problems, because that sort of level of technology and AI can give you real practical steps, can give you, organisations and businesses and services that you can tap into. So we use that. Then with regard to kind of how I was feeling, I love my business. I absolutely love doing what I do. But there's also a part of me that loves this stuff. I love the self-development. I love the introducing people to stuff within the self-development world that maybe they've never heard of or never tapped into, and connecting with people at the start of that journey. So we actually decided that one of the things I've always wanted to do is train in breath work. Breathwork is something that I have had such a passion for. I've had so many transformational sessions, and actually one of the people that I reached out to the last time that I needed help was a friend and mentor of mine who is a breathwork instructor, and he lives in Bali now, but he does online sessions, and that was incredible. And I don't know why I didn't reach out to him again this time to do a session, but it's just something that I've always wanted to do, and it is expensive. It is an investment. I don't know whether it's something that I can invest in right now, but just to get the wheels in motion and just to kind of signal to the universe that this is what I want to do, I have booked a call in with a breathwork organisation that are specialists in coaching and training people to become breathwork teachers. It's not like I'm going to be sacking off my recruitment business. I love working in business and in, working with leaders and just unlocking growth for businesses, especially in the wellness space. But I also wanted to do something that is maybe slightly different to that, to support, my passions in that space. And so I think that I'll probably start doing that in a corporate setting and using the network that I've got from a corporate perspective. But it just made me feel like I was making steps. It made me feel like I was moving forward. And this is all stuff that I could have thought to do myself, but it was asking for the help and asking somebody else to give their perspective. And also, she's not emotionally charged by these situations. She is not in it. And sometimes, especially when there's things more to do with family members or friends, things that are out of your control, things to do with, health and situations that they're in, I think it can really cloud your judgment of other areas of your life, because the emotions are involved and your head goes off and you go down, a bit of a downward spiral, I guess, mentally with regard to the possible outcomes and everything that's happening. And just that lack of control for me was so, so difficult to deal with, that when there was stuff that I could have put in place with other situations, like the dog, for instance, I wasn't able to see it, or I wasn't able to get there on my own. And so asking for help from her was an absolute game changer. And I'll put a link to her profile in the show notes for anyone that wants to connect. Her name's Gina Swire. But yeah, that really, really helped. And I think as well, there's an element of pride. There's an element of trust and wanting to have control that we all struggle with when asking for help. Some people are great at this, and actually it's some of the most confident and capable people that I know that are brilliant at this. I was listening to a podcast by Denise Duffield Thomas, who is an incredible money manifestation coach. And she was saying, like, she records her podcast, she will batch record like 20, 30 podcasts on one day. And then she just gives the audio to her team, and they do all the artwork, they do all of the editing, they do all of the release dates. And she'll have people message saying, oh, I loved your podcast from this week. And she was like, oh, great. What was it about? Because she recorded it in January and it's now like April or May. And it's because she asks for help. It's because she knows what is her zone of genius and what she is great at. And she knows what is not her natural skill set and what gives her energy. And she asks for help for people in doing those things. And it really made me realise that actually asking for help isn't weak. Asking for help isn't a lack of control. It's the opposite. It is having complete control over the situation. It's being proactive and putting in place steps and having somebody else there who might be more of an expert in that thing, or might be able to help you see things clearly, or might be able to give you guidance on where to go and where to find resources. And the one place, or the one area that I definitely did ask for help and did ask for support and did get that, was in early sobriety. And I think that is probably the one area where people struggle the most, because a lot of people do it in secret. A lot of people don't want to admit that they're not drinking because of the social pressure and the peer pressure. And a lot of people don't want to ask for help and support because they feel like they should be able to do it on their own because, they've not got a problem or an addiction. But actually, the way that we consume alcohol in the Western world is a problem. It just because you're not physically dependent on something, it doesn't mean it's not a problem. My drinking was causing problems in my life, not in terms of like a dependency or relationship issues or anything like that, but just the fact that I was wasting a Monday because I was still tired and firing on probably 30%. The fact that my weekends weren't spacious for me to be able to work on my business. There was so many things that were having a knock-on effect because of drinking every weekend. And I'm not talking about drinking loads, just, a few glasses of wine, and it affects you and your sleep and everything. We all know all of that stuff. So yeah, for me, asking for help and support made me feel like I wasn't doing it alone. I signed up to online groups and forums. I listened to all of the podcasts, read Quit Lit, and basically got all of the help and support that I possibly could. And honestly, I think it's the only reason that it worked at that point. I don't think if I'd have just done it on my own with all the peer pressure, and even my friendship group and family were like, quite supportive. Probably my friendship group was probably more supportive than anything. But I think at that point, it would have been really difficult to get past maybe the first 30 days without having that help and support from people that were going through the same or had been through the same. And so for me, that is such an important area where you really must ask for help and support. You really must go and find those resources and go and find the people and the communities that are, that you're in alignment with. And it won't be all of them. There was some alcohol-free communities where it was more people that had dependencies, and the language that was used and the posts and the comments and stuff just weren't for me. That's fine. But then there was some where it was more about just social events where you weren't drinking, and it was more about people that were just starting to outgrow their old lifestyle and habits. And actually, I think that is such an important area that you reach out. It really is, because like I say, it's life-changing if you get it right. And actually, sometimes asking for help can be the difference between getting something right and, it working or it not. So I hope that has resonated in some way. I hope that you've got something from that. Think about the areas in life where you are maybe not asking for the help and the support that you know that you need. And who's the worst for this? Mother. Well, not just mothers, actually, that's not fair. Parents. I've got some incredible parents in my life in terms of like friends and family members. And the amount of times that they ask for help is, I could count on one hand in a year. They're really not brilliant at doing it unless it's absolutely critical. And back in like the day, I don't know what day we're talking about, but the day, the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child" is really true. We are used to living in societies and communities where everybody chips in and helps, and you lean on people that have got more energy and more time to help support and bring up your children when you don't have that, when you need to rest and you need to rejuvenate and look after the elders. And we've really lost that in society. And so parents are genuinely the worst for asking for help. And also business owners sometimes. I've got friends that run businesses, and there's so many areas that they could ask for help where it would be a cost and an outlay, and it would be, what's the word? Like, you need to speculate to accumulate, right? And it would be that, but they just don't do it because they want to do everything themselves. And I'm guilty of that. I genuinely am. But this year, my motto has been that, well, I say this year, from the last couple of weeks, that I am going to start asking for help and reaching out and, really looking at who can support me through this rather than just trying to cope on my own. Because since I've done that, it has literally changed everything up, and it's made such a difference. So let me know your thoughts on that, and I will see you all again next Sunday. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.